Welcome back to the halftime show on the PAC Sports Network. And we're joined now at the half as Grove City plays host to the Teal Tomcats with Grove City men's basketball head coach Steve Lamie. Coach, thanks so much for your time for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Randy.
Now, Coach, every year Grove City always has a high standard when it comes to defense. No surprise that this year Grove City among the league leaders in scoring defense. How much pride do you and this Wolverines team take in your defense?
We do a lot, Randy, and that's something that has been handed down to me when I played for John Barr here. And of course, I don't know, I played for him, but I was his assistant. And that was kind of ingrained in us, uh, partly because of, and this is historical, but uh, we were back then a team that had to play, we were independent, so we weren't in the league. So we had to play the teams around us, which were Slippery Rock and Westminster when they were NAIA, and Geneva when they were NAIA, and Clarion, and on it goes. So we had to play defense in order to stay with teams. And so I just kind of that's kind of been ingrained in me. And we also tell our players that defense is something that you can completely control with your effort. It doesn't take a lot of uh, uh, I would say athleticism. It just takes a willingness to do it. And we also say that defense travels, that you can play defense as well on the road as you can at home. And so it's a part of our identity. It has been, for I would say 50 years.
And certainly this year is another great example of that. And something else for Grove City, you always tend to have a great senior core. And you have two seniors on this year's team with Josh McCray and forward Josh Bryan. McCray started 14 games last year, comes to the team by way of the United Kingdom. Bryan missed most of the first half of last season and had a solid finish in the second half a year ago. How have those two players stepped up into that leadership position?
Josh has been elected. Well, they're both Joshes. So Josh Bryan is one of our captains and was voted unanimously as a captain. And he has a very interesting story. He was cut twice as a high school player, and then just willed it to happen. And we were so excited to get him because of all the raw material that he had. And he's been in our lineup for all 4 years. But unfortunately, the last two, he's been hampered by some chronic injuries. But thank God, right now he is healthy and he's leading from the front. He is one of our best defenders, one of the best rebounders, and also is finishing inside, which is something that we collectively have struggled with. And then Josh McCray, he doesn't need the captain moniker. He's just acting like one, and he's acting like a senior. And he's coming off the bench for us. And he's doing a really good job. And as I mentioned before, he's it's hard to pigeonhole what position he plays. So I think we finally found out where he's at, and he's coming off the bench and providing a spark in all ways. Like he's really good defensively on the ball. He's our best leaper. Can runs the floor like a deer, and has the ability to drive. He's probably our best driver, and so we're putting him in a position where that's what he can do best, and he can give us some spark off the bench.
And looking at some of the guys on your team that play the Wolverine way and live up to that standard. And we won't have time to get to everybody, but focusing on some is sophomore Jonah Bach. He's tops on the team in three-pointers, among the league leader in that category as well. In a game earlier this season against St. Vincent, he knocked down 7 3-pointers, a career-high 23-point effort for him. What kind of presence does Bach give the Wolverines on the perimeter?
Yeah, he's our best three-point shooter, and he's always a threat. He has a great quick trigger, and the other thing is that he's developed his driving ability. So last year as a freshman, he was just a standstill shooter, and eventually, people are just going to crowd you and not let you get that shot off. Well, now he's developed that rip and drive. So now he's like a two-dimensional player, whereas last year he's just a one. So he's shooting the ball well, but it's because he works at it really hard. It's nice to see him always when I'm walking by the gym, going to my office. He's in there getting his extra shots up. So it's paying off.
Another sensational sophomore is Chase Yarbrough. He's averaging just under 10 points per game and the team's top rebounder, appearing in 26 games as a freshman last season. Why has Yarbrough been able to have such an impact now as a sophomore?
We challenged Chase right after the season was over about some of the things that he had to work on. And one of those was his shot. And the other one was being a vocal presence on the floor because he's a point guard. And also just working on your all-around game. You know, he's a left-hander and he predominantly went left. And so again, the scouting report is going to say, take that away. Well, he worked on his right hand and he worked on his shot and he got out of that shell. You know, he's a reticent young man to begin with, but he's gotten out of that comfort zone and he's really talking a lot more on the floor. So I'm really happy that he's done all those things for us. And again, it was all done in the off season. So.
Grove City has always been home to some of the best big men in the PAC and guys who can rebound, and forwards who have seen time in the starting lineup this season include John Ward, John Weir, and Christian Shusheveno. How do those guys fit the mold in the tradition of Grove City big men?
Yeah, I'll start with John Weir, and John is a junior, and he's starting for us. And one of John's greatest attributes is that he just has a nose for the ball. You know, it's a cliche, but he really does. And he is one of those upperclassmen that just totally buys into the system. And he was one of the, he and Josh Bryan and Josh McCray, I would say was those three guys that really kind of set the tone with what our identity was going to be. And so I can't say enough of good things about John Weir. John Ward is coming off the bench, backing up at the power forward position, and again, one of our best defenders on the ball. He really understands our defensive schemes, which is it's not easy to pick up because it's all switching. But the ball doesn't stick with him on offense, and so he's not scoring a lot of points. But we don't need him to because he's making that extra pass. You know, he's making that great screen. He's making that great read. And so the offense flows well when he's in there. And then Christian Shushevano or Shusheveno, I pronounce it differently at every practice. But Christian is from California, and his mom and dad are Romanian. So he comes to Grove City from he's the farthest away. You know, he's on the other side of the continent. But again, a young man that really buys into the system, and he's just a different young man. And I say this in a positive way. Just takes everything that we say literally, literally, and he goes out and works on it. So he's been able to play significant minutes for us, and he's starting to score inside with some consistency, and that's really going to help us. But again, just three great coachable forwards on our team, and I'm not saying that's not downplaying Josh Bryan's efforts as well.
And on the coaching staff, you talk about big men. You have Andrew Beckman, who was a great forward for you, a 1,000-point scorer and a dominant player during his tenure with the Wolverines. How much does it help in having Andrew coaching up those forwards?
That's a great question. And so we have told Andrew that, okay, you're the big man coach. You're the power forward coach. And teach him what you already know. And, he's young. He's enthusiastic. He has a really tight bond with those kids. And Brady Beach is our other young assistant, and he's in charge of the guards. So they each have like a specialty coach. Whereas Coach Severson, my assistant, Sean Severson, and I kind of look at the big picture. So, and it's fun to have them. And also it's good for us as coaches, as Sean and I, to have maybe a different perspective, whereas because we've been together so long, and we've been together 18 years. And so it's just some fresh ideas of maybe doing the same thing, but in a different way. Or again, it's just youthful, loyal enthusiasm, and it fires me up, but I know it fires up the guys too.
And going back to the guys, sophomore Ben Kano, his
Hmm.
seat time in the starting lineup. Freshman Daniel Panoski, another 3-point shooter off the
Yeah.
bench. What do those guys bring to the table?
Ben, Ben Kano, who's from Greenville, just up the road here. Uh, uh, I'm glad Teal did not recruit him but because we really like him and he's one of our starters. Has just steadily gotten better. And he's a big picture guy. Like he sees things from 10,000 feet. And so he he has a little, it takes him a while to figure it out. And that's not because of it. It's just how he looks at the game. But once he figures it out, like, okay, he's programmed and now you can just let him go in that particular aspect of the game. And so he's doing very well for us. Scoring inside, he may be the most productive guy that we have, like points per minute, or one of the more productive guys.
And as January gets underway, we still have a long way to go in the season, obviously, at this stage. But with such a young team, in incorporating or having those guys mix in with some of the older, more experienced players, what does Grove City need to do to make a push toward the playoffs and make a run in the PAC tournament?
Uh, our defense, we know it's going to get better. Uh, and one thing right now, it's just we have to be able to put the ball in the hole. It has been inconsistent for us, and especially inside. Like our outside shooting has been, it's we're getting good shots and we're making enough of them, but we have to be able to put the ball in the hole inside, and that's just repetition, repetition, repetition. So if we get that down, I think we'll be fine because we're starting to again get it and play to that standard, and it's fun, as I mentioned before, when the light bulb goes on and we see that improvement. So we also, as coaches, we know that we're young. We're going to stumble here and there just because of youth, and we have to, what's the right word for it? Keep hope alive. You know, we have to be able to take those mistakes and then quickly turn around and say, all right, this is what you did wrong. All right, get back in the saddle. All right, get back behind the wheel and try it again. And so I think that's the challenge for us as coaches.
It's Grove City head coach Steve Lamie. Coach, always a pleasure to catch up with you. Thanks so much for your time, and good luck to you and the Wolverines the rest of the way.
Thanks, Randy.
We'll have the second half of today's game when we come back in just a moment.